Perfect. Welcome. So you're just going to be hearing the sounds of my voice. I am joined with some players who want to learn about 3.5. So to give a little quick intro to this video, where this is the table of contents, I'm showing this for elongated time, so that way if you're watching this and you're just wanting to go through it later and skip to certain parts, we're going to be going through this pretty orderly, so you should be able to generally look at the page you're going to be looking at and then be able to look in the sample thing on YouTube and be able to skip to whatever section you need to know. So this is just a general 3.5 guide. This is our way of doing it, my way of doing it as the Dungeon Master, and my way of kind of implementing it. Players are interested, so we'll be talking about kind of some resources you can use and going over a bunch of the old 3.5 books. This is in response to the OGL, but we won't be talking about that in this video. I'll be releasing a separate video later on that if it needs to be. Otherwise, we're not going to be bothering. But
enough people have covered that already.
Right? There's a little fun website called Mythweavers. This is the site I use personally for character sheets. It's a really good way to keep track of everything. However, this is very much like pen and paper, so keep that in mind. So today we're going to be creating a 3.5e character. I've already got some in here, as you can see, that I was kind of messing around with as I've been kind of transferring things. These are all my old characters from way back when I ran them with my first Dungeon Master. So this is the same site I used. And then there's Stone, who was the birth of the famous Corrupt King, that one day I will show that character sheet off to. Alright, so we're going to create a new sheet.
To see the origins of what was killed and eaten by robot.
Right. So you can, to get to your sheets, you just got to go into sheets, following along. We'll just name this test. I'm not really worried about the autofill here. We're going to scroll down to Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. As you can see, they do have the other options. I don't know enough about either of these versions to make it worth it, so we're going to stick with 3.5. And we're going to put our character sheet. I'm going to say no, just so that way players can look at it. You can clone sheets, so if you want to test and make a new character, or you want to level that character all the way up with the min-maxed gear to see what you can do, you can. And then, of course, if you download any of your character sheets, just like D&D Beyond, you can also upload them onto here, and you can go ahead and work on them. Unlike D&D Beyond, you can upload character sheets, which is kind of nice. So we're just going to create sheet. Alright, so what did I name it? Test?
Yeah.
Here it is.
Yeah, same as I named mine,
Yes.
I believe.
So you can see that this is just them talking about something they're going to be launching in the near future. We'll look at that at some point. I'm not going to worry. So what you can't see on screen is up in the top right is there's the settings and everything that you can kind of set up if you ever want to be like, oh, you know, I want to change the character to being private, or oh, I want to change the name here. You can also change what game it is if you'd like. So kind of a nice thing if you ever needed to switch from 3.5 to 5e. So pretty simple.
Yep.
We'll start with the easy stuff, and yes, you do want to fill all this stuff out, because yes, your DM may need to look at this stuff, and that's why I like to keep my stuff public. So we're going to call him Test, Mick Tester. I don't know why, it just sounds good.
I named mine Jahani.
That's fair. So
Mine will be Bob.
there we go.
Jahani Test.
Alright, the alignment. Now, alignment's one of my favorite things, but I don't like to start there. Instead, we're going to jump down to everyone's favorite part, which is dice rolling. So, in ability scores back in the day, the way we used to do it is you'd roll 4d6s and you remove the lowest one. So, for example, if you got 3 3s and 1 1, you would just remove the 1 and then you would just add those 3 and that's your stat. So you'd have 9 and whatever you put it in. Now, that's up to you if you want to do how you want to do it. Some people like to just auto-generate it. That's, you know, through other sites. But that's
I've
the way
seen
to go
some
about
people
it.
roll d20s for it.
Yep. So it's up to you. You can either do, as they talk about this, they go through all the dice and how they work. So this is pretty similar to 5e. It's same mechanics, ability checks, skill checks, as far as your saving throws go, your attack rolls, it's all the exact same combat functions. The only thing I change, as we've talked about this, is the fact that you can use your movement as an action if you're not going to move. So as far as that goes, keep that in mind. But continuing through, so you can go ahead and set up your dice now. Now you can do this still in D&D Beyond if you'd like, if that's where you like to roll your dice. There's nothing wrong with that. But the general
Yeah.
idea is pretty simple. You just want something that tracks whatever you're rolling. We'll use my level 20 version of L here, for example.
Ooh, I guess Jahani's going to be a sorcerer.
And yep, and then we're just gonna roll the stats and whatever we get. So we've got basically 4, 4, and 3. So that gives us in total, is it? Yeah, because it is 4d6s. Because that's the highest you can get is.
As you can get is 18.
Yes, thank you. I was making sure I was correct. So yeah, in this case, I have 8, 9, 10, 11. So I've got an 11 here, and I would just put that down of whatever I was rolling. It doesn't really matter. But the nice thing is, as you're going through here on Mythweavers, similar to D&D Beyond, and one of my personal favorite things that they have had is they do the auto mod change. So you can basically put this in, and it does all of your stats. It updates everything, and we'll be going through all this as we go. But you can even, if you wanted, put a 1. There is no limit, because technically in 3.5, it's impossible to get a 1. It was not technically impossible to get a 3.
Yeah, you can
Which
get 4
still
ones.
can nerf your character down to a buttload. And there were
unusable.
still...
But it makes it fun.
Oh, I have seen a character that ran with a 3 in, I think it was Wisdom.
I mean, technically at
They
that
were
point,
dumb as fuck.
yeah, that's
Funny.
the thing. You got an issue there. But as you can kind of see, it updates the load, so you don't have to do only the math. It lets you know in your Fortitude save, which this is a con save for those wondering. So yeah, we don't have the traditional like Dex save, Strength save, Int save as often. We also have here our Reflexes, which is a Dex check or Dex saving throw, and a Will save, which is like in this belief, this would be a Wisdom save.
Wisdom and Intelligence saves would fall under there.
Nope, it's just wisdom. As you can see, the -1 is tracking from this 9. So if I change this to like say 12, now our will is up to 1. So pretty easy to kind of mess around with. Going forward, we're going to keep going through here. So you can have your armor type. This will be basically, you've got your base AC where you're going to be putting your armor in here, and we'll be getting into that here in a minute, but let's continue on as we are. So now that you've gotten your stats done, we know we're level 1. We're coming in here. So we've already got that set up. The big thing next for us, as we scroll back up to the top, is going to be choosing our race down on page 11. So we're going to come down here to the player's guide. Now, the nice thing is they do give you these little tables. They do this a lot of times so you can roll on them if you'd like. This is up to you. Now, these are only the base races, and I cannot stress this enough. There are so many D&D races. As an example, just to pull up. So we have in here, of course, the Player's Guide to Eberron, the Player's Handbook 2. These being 3.5 extended third-party releases. You can go in here and see they have, well, in this book, this would be a bad example. They don't have any extra races. It's just more classes as you can go through. But let me go into my D&D books here, and I can show you a good example. We've got Races of the Wild right here. We got Savage Species, which is a book about how to make a monster race as your setup, as well as monster classes. And then this basically will give you the different other races of the Races of the Wild. So there's a lot more options in here. We're going to stick to an easy one. We're going to go with a dwarf. So we get a +2 in con and a -2 charisma. It even tells you their favorite class. Now, I will mention, this is old D&D, so there are very specific races are built to favor certain classes. Kind of keep that in mind. It's not as open as the old or as the new 5e system. So we're going to do a +2 to that because we know we get an extra. We just go in here. So we got a +2 to our con. So we will just put that as a 17. And then we have a -2 to charisma. So now we have a 1 in charisma. It's perfect.
Oh, there you go.
Yes. So pretty easy. It kind of gives you everything you need to know right in here. You can go through and read about their personalities and kind of it gives you a bit more of a breakdown of their physical descriptions. So you can kind of see what they're talking about, like what their size is, what the expected relations are with the other parties, and what the other races will be. There are going to be races that don't like each other in traditional D&D. Of course, we already know from my own world, I have different rules, but this is something to keep in mind if you do run your own 3.5 game. And then you get to see your racial traits, which is what you really kind of want to look at to start with. So we're going to actually skip the human part because I don't really care for humans. And I think they're overpowered as shit in this game. So we can see we're a medium. So we want to go in here now and we're going to look for where our size is. And we can see it's right up here. And we're going to add that we're medium. Medium basically means that we gain no special bonuses or penalties to our size. Pretty standard. This being a note because some prestige classes do actually require a size limit, so you want to make sure you keep note of what size you are. For example, gnomes can become pug knights as a prestige class, and yes,
Pug
that
knight?
does mean you get to ride into battle on a pug, an armored pug. Yes, that is a thing. Halflings also,
Yeah,
I think, have
amazing.
access to it. But yeah, so going forward, we have continue on rather. We have our dwarf base speed right here is 20 feet, so we see that pretty easy. So we can go into here, 20. As we know, dwarves really not well known for their amazing speed. Going forward, and then we have our dark vision. So we have our first general stat, we'll call it. So now we want to kind of look through here and just see if there's anything of note. So we can see, if we don't see something of dark vision, now it's been a while, so note that I do not remember everything from these sheets. So I'm just double checking to make sure I don't see a dark vision note. I believe I'm correct in it. So then yes, we would go down to our special abilities here and we would put in dark vision. And we would note that for dwarves, it's up to 60 feet. Welcome to D&D, by the way, where you want to keep as much of your notes on there to quick access. Okay, so up to 60 feet. So we want to just kind of keep track of that. Yes, you have to do the same thing with your spells. Just kind of keep that in mind as we're going through. We have and we will be going down here to do all that to show off the spell thing. So we're going to be playing a Dwarven caster. Be afraid. Because I'm unable to... Thank you, Maya, if you're watching this. So next we got Stone Cunning. So this is something to kind of keep in mind. I like to write down any of my racial bonuses, just so that way if my DM comes snooping in here, they can see why something is going on. So Stone Cunning is pretty simple. It just basically gives you a +2 search checks to notice unusual stonework. Basically, you're kind of like a rogue that can look at stones and be like, yeah, there's a trap in there. Pretty simple. So
There's a boulder coming.
Yep. To search of stone, basically. Anything that has stone in it, you have a +2 to. Now, why is that important? Because you can go down here and you can go ahead and just like in D&D Beyond, which I personally favor how they have their system of just being able to add skill checks through the custom skill check right here. You can just add one right there.
The car roll.
Yes. L is well known for it. I can come down here though, and I can do search for stoneworks, and note that this is going to be, and we're gonna look at this. Where is it? So it's int. So I can go in here, copy that, and boom. So that gives that. Now we have an extra for our misc modifier of 2 from our racial thing that we can add.
And for this, because I've made a dwarven character before in 3.5, I go by just naming a skill Stone Cunning, basing it off int, and then...
Yeah, that's fair. You can definitely do that as well. It's kind of nice, and that's also something you'll notice with the knowledges, as we'll talk about that here later. Continuing on, we have to do we have our next thing for weapon familiarity. So dwarves are basically most likely to use war axes and dwarven urgrashes. Basically, we'll be going into the equipment for that. So for weapon familiarity, you want to put something down for this. It just basically means you have proficiency with these weapons. That's it. That's all it means. So I always, again, copy and paste things like this just to kind of keep track of them. And I try to abbreviate it down to one item. Dwarven war axes. Okay, and... Again, you want to keep everything as easy to read as possible for while you're looking at this. So, pretty simple. Now I note I have weapon familiarity with those two, so that's basically a proficiency bonus, is what it's noting. So, Continuing on, we have our stability of the dwarf. Dwarves are exceptionally stable on their feet. A dwarven gains a +4 bonus on ability checks made to resist being bull rushed or tripped when standing on the ground. So again, something you want to kind of keep note on. You gain that +4, and all you need to know is this, basically. Boop. And boom. Now, again, this is just something to kind of, you want to keep your notes as clear as possible when you're going through these, so try to keep it down and abbreviated. Who joined?
I don't know.
Let me pull it up.
Caleb.
Oh, welcome, Caleb. All right, continuing on. We've got our stability, so we've now noted that. And this is something to you can kind of put this in your notes down at the very bottom. There is a note sheet in here, and this is something to kind of keep in mind that I always like to do something along the lines when I'm done with going through these, is anything that I notice is kind of unique or has a long explanation, I just go in and copy and paste
it down into the notes.
Yeah, because I don't want to have to come in here every time I'm looking for something of information. All right, continuing on, we know that we have a +2 racial bonus for dealing with poisons. Again, something you will want to note at the very end here. Kind of going through here, you can note it in your stats. However, in this situation, due to the fact that it would only specifically be to poison, you can't just add it to your fortitude save. But if you do have a bonus or a misc modifier, that would increase your fortitude, which is your con save basically at this point. That would be something to note right here. So kind of just keeping that there. We also have a +2 on saving throws against spells and spell-like effects. This is something to kind of keep track of. Again, something in general that you want to know overall. Again, it doesn't do anything for these, unfortunately, unless it's very specific to that. So that's why you want to kind of keep it listed down here. Because otherwise you don't apply it unless it is specifically for spells. Now, most often or not, will saves will be spells, which is something you can kind of note. But at the same time, it depends on your DM and how they're running things.
Because there are traps that can cause reflex saves.
Here's one of my favorites. You have to deal with the fact that you do have a +1 racial bonus attack rolls against orcs. Certain races don't like other races, and this is where you start to see the racism of D&D 3.5. Or as my favorite discussion is the argument of slavery in high fantasy. So kind of keep this in mind going forward. If you're not big on the idea of having slavery in your campaigns, that 3.5 does have a lot of hatred between different races. So you might want to take that into account if you're doing some modifying or homebrewing. Like I said, good example is most people don't like orcs. So this is a big one that should be noted. Almost all races hate orcs. And you'll see more bonuses like this as we go on. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and just kind of keep that in mind that we know this, that we're going to gain those bonuses. Again, going down to our notes at the very bottom just to keep track of this.
I note anything that ends up giving me a dice bonus in my special feats and special abilities. I keep the first line for special abilities and the rest usually for feats.
That's fair.
I figure I would pop that in there because I know that's a good way because it's on the first page basically. Now, for you to quickly peek down and see.
Here's something to note. So in the case of dwarves, again, like other races, some have favored monsters that they're accustomed to hunting based on their racial backgrounds. So something to kind of keep track of. Again, 3.5 does have a lot more customization, but there is a lot more you have to keep track of on a personal level, and that's why it doesn't translate very well into these D&D Beyond websites. Is because there is so much very specific information. So kind of keep that in mind.
Would be too high.
Yes. So again, I'm just going to keep that right in here. It's a pretty simple one. You don't need much more of the notes than that. Unfortunately, it's a giant type, so it's a type of monster, not a specific size classification. The next one here, though, is kind of nice. We have a +2 racial bonus on appraisal checks for anything that is a metal and stone items. So in that one, you can go in here and do something down here, similar to appraise. And you just go and join that down here of stone/jewelry, which is what it is. We go based on the int.
Metalwork.
We simply copy that right in, and then we gain our extra bonus of a +2 for that, just in case. Kind of nice to have that going so you can kind of keep track of your modifiers as we're kind of going through this. Yeah, stone or metal. Alright, and then basically the languages you get. So you get a lot more languages, but you get specific ones that are bonuses based on your intelligence score, which we'll talk about that here as well in a minute. So we're going to go down here to common, to put our languages. Now, I stacked them because there are times when you're going to have more languages in this, so it's just kind of good to note. So kind of keep that in mind. And then you have your last part, which is the favored class. Now, this doesn't matter. This is just more of, hey, if you're a new player, this is based on the culture of them, based on in the book, and what we recommend based on their stat builds. So kind of keep that in mind. Dwarves, being the type who have poison resistance, tend to get hit or are really good at tanking a lot of damage, and they have that bonus to their con, so it makes them really good at just being the face tank of the party. Each of the races do have very specific builds that can be kind of implemented. However, by no means should you limit yourself. All right, continuing on. Oh, wait. First off, going on through this now, does anybody have any questions so far? Because we're going to jump back over to the ability score of the intelligence thing real quick.
Nope.
Nah, I'm good thus far. This is a good flat reminder.
Perfect. All right. So, big thing here in intelligence is the language bonus. So you do get extra languages. And I'm trying to remember exactly what it's based off of. Because there's a specific number of languages your character knows at the start of the game. So yeah, where is it specifically? That's important. Your character wants to see it. Is it just the bonus of your flat intelligence, which in this case would be a +1? So I'd get a bonus language of yeah. So okay, there we go. Now I think that's how it would go. Yeah. So in this case, since I have the stat I do for the intelligence, I would get one of the bonus languages mentioned in the dwarven thing. Now the reason why it's specifically those bonus languages is because these are the languages they're going to be most exposed to. So you can pick pretty much any of these. In our case, we're just going to pick Giant. Make it real easy. And then
I'll take Giant and I'll take Orc. That way I can insult the dirty orcs.
That's fair. And then there we go. So that's languages done and your ability scores. So that's the racial stuff and the easy stuff. Now we do have to do our HP rolls here in a minute.
I have a question about the languages.
Go ahead.
If you were to increase your intelligence in the middle of the game and get another modifier, do you get other languages? Or
No, this is base bonus based on your intelligence from your childhood up to the age of adventuring. Is what the extra language is from. So
okay.
So the assumption is basically the more smart you are prior to the adventure starting, the more languages you would have naturally picked up.
Okay.
Which I think is BS because I think it should be based on charisma, because I think language is picked up on your ability to naturally adapt the language to your speaking habits, not based on your study.
Yes, but it takes the intelligence to retain the language.
Hey, that's
I
fair.
can see what they're going with
no,
it. That's
I mean,
why I'm
I
just
fully
giving that
agree
argument.
with it. And we're going to be doing our hit points here next because now that we're getting
Class
to
levels.
our classes, which are on page 21. By the way, who else joined?
It was just
That was a
Welcome,
Chaston.
Don't worry,
Cool.
Chaston. You've only missed 23 minutes. We've gotten our stats.
You're late to class.
Yeah, you are. We have picked our race, which I forgot to put down. We have basically gotten our skills set up for our special abilities for our racial stuff, and then our skills as well as our languages picked out. And then just noting our extra information for anything specific to our race. For example, in this situation of a dwarf, they get bonuses of armor class against specific races or monsters. So, I assume you probably went in last night and did a lot of work, so I'm not going to chase you on this. So we're just going to kind of move on.
Acting like an actual college teacher here.
Yes. Now, I will note something when you're going through this, for your height and weight, it does talk about that I kind of skipped over. The reason I skipped over, even though it is in the racial information, in my opinion, this stuff isn't as important yet until we pick our class and see what we're looking for our overall stats and what kind of gear we're kind of wanting. Now, looking at this for my character, I'm going to guess this dwarf isn't going to be very pretty.
Not talking to people. He's smush faced. He's smush faced Pass.
As I've been learning, non-charismatic people apparently are gingered. So we're gonna go with the traditional brown-eyed dwarf. Now we can go in here.
Mine is charismatic.
And look at the racial stuff there if you want to see where it is. I will go down to it real quick, just to kind of show, because this does talk about this, the physical description. So dwarves stand only about 4 to 4.5 feet tall. We're going to put our dwarf at 4 feet tall because why not? He is going to be a short battle tank of sorts. We'll roll for the class just to see what happens. The dwarves do have a very interesting personality. I never really read this if you're playing in homebrew, and the reason why is because every DM has a different culture, so it's not as big of an interest, and the same goes with relations, but like I did say, 3.5 has a lot more racial tension, so kind of keep that in mind. The alignment thing is a very big deal if you're playing in normal D&D. This being usually lawful is a massive thing and tending towards good. Dwarves are traditional paladins. They are massively, although it's suggested to play fighter, they are massively honorable and they're very religious. In 3.5, and you can look up the videos for the lore of this, there are not many female dwarves in Dwarven society. In traditional D&D, which causes them to be more stoic and much more focused on their craft as a culture. So kind of keep that in mind. However, in my world, they're racist assholes. So we don't have to worry
they will
about that.
also flirt with almost any woman that they may be able to breed with.
There you go. We can see that some dwarven men are slightly taller. The typical skin is deep tan or a light brown. So in our case, we're gonna go ahead and I don't think there is a skin tone. No.
There is, but it is near the bottom where you can put a better description of
the scars and stuff that we'll talk about. Looking through here, we can see that on average they live up to 400 years, and that dwarves consider adults by 40. So we're gonna make a really young dwarf. We're gonna call him 60 years old. And then as far as his weight, we don't ever ask a dwarf their weight as far as it goes, and there's really not much discussion on their weight. You can kind of look up websites for that. I have my own lore for what I put dwarven weight at, which we're not going to worry about right now. And then as far as it goes,
I was told that dwarves in 3.5 were medium by weight. So
yeah, you are medium. Dwarves are considered, they just barely, because of their weight, not their height, classify as medium. So you can name the campaign, you can choose your deity. It does talk about the religion. Moradin, one of my favorite gods, also known as the Soul Forger. However, again, he doesn't exist in my world, so I won't be going into that too much. But you can put your deity, your campaign, and then we're going to get to the fun parts. So we're going to make our character lawful good. Does it matter? No. But it's something I always like to do. We're going to make him a worshiper of Moradin, because that's usually my go-to. We have currently 0 XP. We will be getting to the... you can see the XP level goes based on your level that you put in here. And then you can put in the change in XP. So we have 500. Boom. There we go. Makes it real easy to deal with this. One of my favorite things. And it keeps track of it for you, so not too bad. Campaign name is just so that way you can keep track of it. Let's continue on to what people really come for, which in my opinion is the classes. Now, again, this is just the base. There are other options. Just using the races of Wild, you can already see that we're going to have other character options in the future, prestige classes and all that, which I'll touch on later. But this is just base D&D 3.5, so please keep that in mind. All right, so we're going to go down to page 21. And again, interrupt me if you have questions. Go ahead.
I'm just going to interrupt you to put this out there because I know that if this gets picked up by a bunch of people that have watched or played 5th edition, they may not understand that in 3.5, 20 is not the level limit.
Yeah, I'll be talking about that.
Very big here.
Yeah, I'm going to be going into that here in a minute. Don't worry, because that's more to do with the class system. So the XP,
I know, but I figured I'd hop out there.
There is an XP system that talks about how this kind of works. So you also have your level dependence, your skills level up. So in this case, we can see that basically at level 1, no matter what we have, our base saves are going to be somewhere around this, is what we're expecting. This is good. This is good for base save bonuses, and this is what we'd expect for poor. So if you have zeros, in this case, for example, like we do, we have a 1 in reflex, will, and a 3 in fortitude. That's pretty decent for overall. So something to kind of keep in mind.
I have a 4, 1, and a 2.
There you go.
So I'm doing good.
All right. This gives you your XP as well as your class skill max level ranks. So you're only allowed to put up to 4 points into your your skills going through here to kind of keep that in mind. You can already see that we're at a max here listed. So we have 4 stats to add in. Means I can just kind of do that, and it'll basically would update. So right here, our ranking.
It would update.
So this would increase what our rank is, how much we've put into it, and such. So looking at this, we see we have we can level a single skill up to 4, and any cross-class skills up to 2, which I'll get into here in a minute, and we get up to a single feat that we can pick as we're going through. And it kind of goes through this depending on the class you're gonna pick. There's also a table that kind of tells you it tells you all the hit die, so kind of keep this in mind. You'll want to keep track of that as we're going. So, let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Someone pick a number between 1 and 5 for me.
4.
I heard 3. All right, so we're gonna become a bard. Oh, good.
Oh boy, the charisma caster.
The Charisma Caster with a 1 in our Charisma. Alright. So this is our amazing bard, Test McTester. He never stood a chance. His clan wiped out immediately. Alright, so we know that if we're going to max out our HP, it's a D6. So we know that our total HP is going to be 6 overall. That'll be our current as well as our total. Our hit die is 1d6, or is a d6 rather, so kind of to keep that in mind. And if you have any extra damage reduction, or if you have any non-lethal damage you take on. So when someone punches you in the face and says, hey, I do this non-lethally to not kill you, that's where they're applying that. So we're going to I'm just putting that down. We're going to make a skinny dwarf. We have no damage reductions yet, so we'll kind of get into that with the equipment. But, alright, so we're going to go down to Bard. Oh, good. This is going to only go well. Alright, so...
be a character in the campaign.
Oh, yes. It will be a character in the campaign at some point. I'll just change his name slightly. So this talks about what kind of reasons your bard would want to go onto an adventure, why bards typically do, what is to be known about bards, and generally what their kind of personalities are like. You've got their more specific characteristics, and how they kind of perceive some of the other classes, and what is their common alignment as well as religion. Like I said, 3.5 gives you a ton of information. It also tells you what other classes they work well with, so that's something to kind of keep in mind, and what role generally they will play in the party. Now, to note, this is what is generally expected. The reason I say this is because a lot of these classes can be played multiple ways and is expected to be played in multiple ways. A good example is the rogue, who has the thug build, which is one of my favorites, as well as the thief build. A thug is a rogue with a really high strength stat instead of dex, and who focuses on more collecting the money rather than stealing it. So something to kind of keep in mind. So we can see at first level, for a bard, we've got our bonuses here. So we'll get a a bonus of a +2 from our class. So we'll go into here and we'll look for our misc modifier here, or rather our base modifier here of an extra 2 from our own class. And we look at our will save. We also have a +2. So we want to go in here and do that here. Pretty simple. This is just your base on your class, and then you've got your own ability modifiers, which now we can see, hey, our will save isn't that bad. It'd be a lot better if this was like, let's say a 15, but it won't matter. Or not this, rather. Our wisdom was better, but you know, it's okay. We can, we're gonna deal with our natural 1 here. So we get our special abilities, Bardic Music, which will go down to here, our Bardic Knowledge, which I'll be talking about, Counter Song, Fascinate, as well as Inspiring Courage, and we want to note that we have 2 cantrips available to us. So why is that important? Because you got to go down here, and you got to put a 2 in here. Yes. This is something you gotta go through. This is why spellcasters in 3.5 with everything, you're gonna have a lot of writing to do, so get ready, people. And yes, there are psionics. No, we are not touching that today. That'll take way too long to go into. Alright, so, big thing is, we note here that our alignment is going to be anything non-lawful. Well, that's unfortunate, because we are a lawful-based dwarf, and that we have our hit die of a d6, as mentioned earlier. So what we have are class skills. What are class skills? Class skills are basically when you're going to go through here and you see how all these are listed as class skills currently. Well, we got to unping all of these. And there's unfortunately no easy way to do that. Why do we do this? Because this tells us what ones we get class bonuses from. What's up? What'd you say, Grumpy?
No unping all.
No, you just gotta go through slowly and do that. Now, I'm going to leave these two down here because these are two racial skills that we'll have. And we'll have our performance and professions here that we'll get to momentarily. Yes, this is normal how long it takes to do a character in 3.5. You'll get used to it. So, we just basically are now going to go through here and click all of these. I'm not going to, but I'm going to expect you to. But yeah, so we basically go through and one by one, we're going to kind of just double check them against what this is. So we see we have balance. We click that. We want bluff. So why does this matter? Basically, when we're investing our skills, which I'll talk about this here in a minute, we have to invest 2 ranks of our skills each time we level up into this to level up a non-class skill and only 1 to level up a class skill. So, for example, if you are a fighter and you don't have the bluff as a class skill, and you have, let's say, 2 or 3 points, 3 skill points, you would have to put 2 skill points in this to level it up. So that's why it's important to keep track of your class skills. So just to kind of go through here, it also tells you like what crafts you have, which is also extremely important because you can be a craft character but not have all of the craft class skills. So something to kind of keep in mind because you will have to get feats for that. So and in this case, we just have craft in general for our setup as a class skill. So for our skill points, how do you tell me skill points you have? You take your intelligence modifier and you 6 plus that. So in our case, going in here, our intelligence modifier is 1. So 6 plus 1, and then we go in here, times 4. So 7 times 4, Grumpy.
28.
28. So we get 28 points at the very beginning that we get to invest. So now I can go in here and just put ranks. So let's say I got 28. Now the max rank you can do right now is 4. So you can't go above this. This is what you're expected. This is the highest you can go at level 1.
Oh,
so,
I can't put 28 in there.
No, so I can put
Shame.
4 in here, but it gives me a chance to kind of buff out my skills. So we'll just keep going down the list, and I would just continue to do that. Now, if it's not a class skill, notice this, where climb isn't. If I put 4 in there, now, it's saying I have a 4. That's supposed to be a 2. I don't know why it didn't update, because that's not how that works. But okay. So that would be how you'd have to keep track of that yourself to kind of keep in mind. So you basically go down and invest your skills like that. And then that is when I ask now for a bluff check, you would go in here and you'd say, oh, well, I have a -1, so a d20 plus, or plus -1. Pretty simple. All right. This also gives you your weapons and armor's proficiency, so something to kind of keep in mind. Also, from now on, anytime you level up, as long as my intelligence is only a +1, I would get 7 points each time I leveled up. So something to kind of keep in mind. This does change depending on the class. Bards, as we all know, are jack of all trades, so they get some of the highest amount of skill points to kind of keep in mind.
If you increase your intelligence in the middle of the game, do you then have to add a bunch of more skill points?
Then at the next level up, so if you, in this case, let's say, went to a 17 in intelligence somehow, right? Then your next level up, when I got to level 2, I would then do 6 plus 3. And that would be, so I'd get 9 skill points.
So it's not retroactive?
No. It is, it continues thereafter, once it occurs.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions so far? Okay. All right, we'll continue on. So this gives you your weapons and armor proficiency. This is something to kind of keep in note because you're going to want to know what you can use. So we are only proficient with light armor and shields. Dwarves do have some bonuses, but I don't believe in this version they get heavy armor proficiency naturally. So kind of keep that in mind. So these are the weapons and armor we can buy. We want to kind of keep track of that. These are the only ones we're going to be able to use. Again, something else to kind of keep track in like other notes. Just overall to know when you're buying equipment. It would really suck as a bard if you bought like a great axe and you can't use it. Oh, someone dropped off.
This is Caleb.
Okay. Oh, he is at work. Okay. So now we know. Continuing on. So we knew at going up here that we had immediately we could cast two cantrips per day. So that was something we wanted to keep track of. We have 2 spells here known currently. Now going down here, we see that it looks like we expand this. It looks like it's actually 4. So I was wrong. You can only cast up to 2 per day, but you have 4 spells available to you. So something to kind of keep in mind. And I don't know. Yeah, there we go. So currently, we can only do that. So you have your amount of spells up here in the spells known, and then down in spells versus saves, you can see that spells per day, you only get 2 cantrips, which is kind of a nice thing, but can kind of screw over wizards. Early game in 3.5 for you magic casters out there, I'm sorry to say, but if you thought 5e you were squishy, you're not going to like 3.5 anymore. You get a lot better spells late game, and you become god late game, but early game, you are limited. It's not like 3 or 5e where you have unlimited cantrips. You only have a certain amount. So kind of keep that in mind. There is that kind of kick in the ass. There's the whole spell list. Put phone away, cable would turn makeup course. That's fine. Okay. You do get there's a spell list that you can go down, and it does basically talk about bards are arcane casters, so you'll get the same spell types available to sorcerers and wizards. And it talks about what page to go to, which we'll get to that here in a minute when we go to pick our spells out. For now, let's continue making sure we're going through and getting our skills done. And this talks about what your spell DC is going to be. So the difficulty class for spell saving throws against a bard is 10 plus their spell level. So in this case, this is a cantrip, so it'd be 0. So 10 plus 0 plus the bard's charisma modifier. Which unfortunately means we have a -5. So we have 5 as our current spell save.
Amazing.
Yes. And you can continue going up if you want to just keep track of this ahead of time. If I wasn't planning like going forward to ever up my charisma by any means, right now I can just go in here and be like, okay, so that's 6, that's 7, that's 8, that's gonna be 9. We're just gonna keep going.
Depressing.
Yeah, it really is, because that means at 9th level, our spell save is finally 14. And that's if we invested all of our levels into Bard. So this is just something to kind of keep in mind. The great joys. You can also, as you level up, keep track of this. You don't want to, ahead of time, add anything in here. The reason why is because you want to note that you only know these 4 spells, so you don't have anything extra in here. So, continuing on, now that we have our amazing spell DC, which, God, I cannot wait to make this an Oventium floor boss that everyone thinks is a barbarian, and it's actually a bard. With a really bad charisma. So, we're going to go into the Bardic Knowledge. A bard picks up a lot of stray knowledge, and basically this is going to be your Bardic Knowledge check. And we get to see what kind of knowledge you have, which is a fun thing. So, depending on the knowledge, you've got the different ones here for examples that you can use. And it's just basically going to be a plus your intelligence modifier to see what is known about the relevant area. You can learn more about noteworthy items and legendary items. So bards don't necessarily need to use identify or legend lore rather to learn the legend of an item. This is the DC, so you can kind of see for what your bonus will be. This is just considered a knowledge and history, so we would go in to our knowledge, specifically our skill here for one of them, and we put history. We are now going. This would be a class skill in this case. And we look what we got. So we get our intelligence modifier, but we also get a +2 on that bonus check. So because it's a knowledge thing. So we go in here to our misc modifier, because you don't want to do it in your rank. And you do that. And then you see you have a +3. So pretty simple. And this kind of gives you, this is an example for the DM. So if like you're a new player as a bard and you're like, okay, I don't know what to expect the DM's going to have for these DCs when I'm rolling a history check on some legendary item, this would be a good example of what the DM could use. So if, for example, you get handed this really legendary mace that's never been seen before, but like maybe one drawing of some legendary lord, you can expect the DC to be around 30. This would be something pretty obscure. But if you get handed a legendary stick that has been handed down for 20 generations in the same town to the same family, the DC is probably going to be more like a 10 for more common information about it. So this is kind of what this is supposed to simulate when you see tables like this. The next thing, continuing on, is our bardic music. So this is our inspiration, but we also have what is called song music spells. Yes, these are things you can do for your perform skill. These are extra bonuses you can do. These are considered, in a sense, special skills checks. Basically, once you get a certain amount of ranks in these skills, you can upgrade them. Yeah. And in some cases, these are spells that you'll just get that are really nice to get. So, for example, Fascinate, a bard with 3 or more ranks in Perform skill, can use this music. Can use his music or poems to cause 1 or more creatures to become fascinated with him. This isn't a spell slot. This is just something you can do. So something to kind of keep in mind when you're looking at these. Even though these are spells, it's something that you'll get as you bonus in skills. So, and these are also bonuses based on your level. So a bard at once you become 6th level, you can get Suggestion, which we know the spell of Suggestion. You automatically basically have it made available to you. Continuing on, as we see, these are more just common spells and abilities you'll get as you level up. So these are just basically your level up abilities, which we don't get anything because we're level 1. So that kind of sucks, basically. It does also talk about something that, to note, if you are dealing with an enemy that is deaf, they do have a 20% chance of failing. So any of these spells listed in here will have lower chance on deaf enemies. So kind of keep that in mind. There is a list for components. If you're a DM who uses components, I pity you. But if you do want to look, there is a table for that. And you can kind of go through these. We don't gain anything at level 1, unfortunately, so there's nothing to really do other than the bardic music, which is the once per day at bard level. You can use a song or poetic to basically give the inspiration. This is your inspiration here. So pretty simple. Lastly, we're going in here, we have X-Bards. Here's an example of a character or a bard or a person who was a bard. Yes, there are X characters. Why is this a big thing? Because in 3.5 D&D, paladins and clerics can fall. 5e doesn't have fallen setups really. So you can lose your god and lose all your shit, and the reason why this is important is because this happens to every class. Technically, any class can lose all of it, and this is kind of something that they would note. As a bard who becomes lawful in alignment, cannot progress as a bard at all. So technically, our character at level 1 can no longer become any further bard because of the fact of his alignment. This would happen, say, if a paladin who worships an evil god became good, he would lose. He could no longer pursue levels in paladin, and he would become a fallen paladin, which is a subclass we'll talk about. So that's something to kind of keep in mind.
In that case, a risen paladin.
There is a specific rule to how 3.5 fallen paladins. And
I was making a joke
okay.
because you said evil god going to good.
That's fair. Yeah. So the other thing to note is they always give you a starting character. So if you're a player who's really lazy and doesn't have character ideas, congratulations, we have something for you. We have our sample character. Here's what they're building. This is what they've put their skills into. So you don't have to do any of the work. They've done everything for you. Last thing, and then you can kind of see what their little setup here is, what their feat. If dexterity is 13, yes. So you do get dodge as a thing as a free feat as a bard. Basically, if you have a specific dex, or if you have a different dex, you will get improved initiative. So this is something to kind of keep in mind. There are bonuses to that. It talks about the spells known that you automatically can get at first level. And then, of course, what is your starting gear? So this is all of your starting gear you would get for what starting out as a bard, and then this is your gold counter. So you just do 2 times 4, and that's your GP. There is no fun background thing like they have where that decides all your coin. Nope, we have set. And I'm sorry to say, certain classes do just get screwed for how much gold they're going to get.
No money.
So, yeah.
Meanwhile, other classes get blessed like they are young gods.
Yeah, true. So now that we've gotten our racial stuff done, we've gotten all of our class stuff done, we know everything that we're set up, we need to do our gear. We don't have any extra special abilities from our class that I'm going to mark down, although you would mark any of those, as I mentioned earlier, from these as we level up. But due to the fact that we don't have Bardic Inspiration, I would just normally just put Bardic Inspiration and put my dice for that, which is listed in here if you want to read through all this. I'm not going to bother today, as this video's already lasted 50 minutes. And if you're still watching, I'm sorry. So,
Like the video.
I will also probably say this: you can always talk to people and work out better things to go with, or have your background matter. That's something that DMs can do, and just work with everybody.
So
make things fun for everyone.
Last thing to mention is multiclassing. So 3.5, multiclassing is extremely important. Why? Multiclassing gives you access to other class spells and stuff, but multiclassing also talks about prestige classes. So in D&D 3.5, you can become up to 3 classes just by a combination, or you can just do 2 as a prestige. Why is that important? Prestige classes basically let you gain abilities beyond level 20, because as Cameron mentioned earlier, 3.5 goes beyond level 20. It's called the Epic Level Handbook, which we do have access to, and I would be happy to go into an explanation of that when we get to that point. But basically, the setup is that you can choose. A good example is my favorite is the Bear Warrior. You can go into you have to fulfill a certain amount of requirements. So for Bear Warriors, you have to have so many levels in Barbarian, Totem of the Bear specifically, and then on top of that, you have to have so many levels into Druid and have specific stats. But if you fulfill all these, then after confirming with your DM and finding someone who can teach you this, you can join a prestige class. And I do specifically mention finding someone because unlike 5e, where it's just assumed that, oh, hey, one day this cleric learns to be a rogue, in 3.5, to become prestige, especially very specific prestige class like the Purple Dragon Knight, which you all knew I was going to bring up, you do have to actually go join the Knightly Order and work your way through the ranks, and there's like a specific way of doing things. So based on your character's what classes you choose, you will have more classes available to you as you go further on. And these can be available between levels 1 to 20 or beyond level 20, depending on what the requirements are. I won't go into the prestige classes today, but like I said, it will be something we will cover in the near future. So, this also talks about multiclassing. Now, I don't favor 3.5's rules on multiclassing, and the reason why is because of the fact that I think it kind of holds the player back a little bit. So you can read through this, but the main point is that basically by multiclassing, you get your extra hit die, you get your base attack bonuses. It talks about how to break that down, how to do the saving throws, how to do the skills in here that you get from both. Big thing is you cannot let your XP between the 2 levels of character or 2 classes shift too much. The more there's a separation of levels, so if you have like 10 levels in Barbarian and 1 level in Druid, the more it takes to level up that Druid. So you actually have to get more experience to level up than other players would. Now, I don't run this personally, but this is something to note if you are joining a 3.5 table, is that you need to keep your levels within 1 level of each other, otherwise the XP requirement becomes higher and higher, so kind of keep track of that. Also, we still do keep the ability score requirements for specific classes, so kind of keep that in mind for multi-classing. You don't need to for your first class, but for your second class, it does talk about how that all works in here. So that's kind of something to keep in mind overall. And it does talk about that there are rules for characters going on beyond the 20th level, and we'll kind of talk about that later. But yes, uneven levels basically will cause a 20% penalty to your XP. In some cases, some races will cause even more of an XP penalty because some races do not favor certain classes. Yes, that's an actual thing. So kind of depending on how strict your DM, this is something you want to keep in mind. I don't run this on my table, but I will want to let my players that this is something that would be a normal situation.
Along with, if the player themselves does impose it on themselves, that's their problem.
Mm-hmm. So here's skill checks. Talks about how to basically you roll a d20 plus your skill rank, basically, and your ability modifier, and that's what we all see right down here. This is already added up, so it's pretty simple. It kind of tells you about how you're going to go for each of the classes. So as we can see, barbarians don't get much skills. Wizards get even less skills. So
wizards, sorcerers, paladins,
yeah, it can get kind of rough.
And clerics all get kind of fucked.
Yes, but that's also due to how their classes work and the expected position in their rank, and like where they're going to be sitting in the party. Certain classes are expected to pick up the kind of dead weight. Rogues and bards are traditionally going to be your utility people. And the DM is going to take a quick minute because I got to take a leak, so we're going to pause the video and be right back because we are about an hour in and I need a quick second. So be right back, boys. All right, welcome back.
Dip for a bit. I will possibly come back.
No worries. Welcome back for those who are watching. After a quick pause on our end, nothing's changed for you. We continue on. So this talks about our skills. Again, talk about how putting in ranks works. And as I mentioned, with how half ranks kind of work if it's a non-class skill, and what to kind of keep in mind. This kind of keeping in mind that for a non-class skill, we can only put up to 2 ranks into it, but for a class skill, we can put up to 4 ranks into it. So kind of keep that in mind. So, continuing on. Pretty simple how skills work, and it kind of gives you a breakdown of who does what, and who's trained in what. So if you're really wanting to keep track of your party members without them knowing, you can do all the information yourself, but we will judge you as kind of weird. Just kind of keep that in mind. So it also talks about like the difficulty levels for classes, and what to kind of keep in mind on opposing checks. And it talks about like what a opposing check would be, what you'd expect. So for example, if you were trying to con someone, you would roll for bluff, they would roll for sense motive. And like that kind of gives you a breakdown of generally how the skills will work against each other, and kind of more talking about how a DM may run it, how they may not, and what kind of times you want to run it. This is more of what I call a recommendation. As I've learned, players don't really give a shit whether or not the skill is going to be useful at that point or not. They're still going to try, so that's on you. If you're a dungeon master, this is a useful table to kind of take a look at and sample off your own character skill sheets to kind of keep in track for NPCs and monsters. But as a player, I doubt many of you will actually read all this stuff. Just note that basically, if you make a skill check, the NPC also has a opposing skill check. Pretty simple. Continuing on, they do talk about practically impossible tasks. Yes, there are DCs all the way up to 60. Yes, there's DCs all the way up to 90. Yes, you can get all the way up to that if you specialize specifically. We will go into that with the prestige classes when we do. You can also it talks about combining skill attempts, like multiple players doing it, as it can be like the help action and such like that. And then it talks about more on the specifics of what you'd be looking at for certain skills and how you would work together. So, for example, diplomacy checks, you might have a high diplomacy in here, which is like, so in our example, we have a -5. If we had that and we were trying to do a bluff and I was trying to bluff a diplomat with diplomacy, I would combine the skills of, in this case, a -1 and a -5.
There you go. That helps.
Yeah, definitely. And it talks about how the description of the skills and how you can kind of use them. Again, this is just a breakdown of every kind of way you would have to use them. And this, again, is not necessarily how your Dungeon Master will run it. This is just how the book is expecting or recommending you run. These are not solid rules in any way, shape, or form. So, any questions on skill checks? All right. If I ever get an editor, they'll have to come back through this whole video and split up the sections. Okay. Now, fun part. Feats. We all know about feats. It's pretty simple on how feats work. We'll go down to this, and then we're not going to go and pick anything, but I'll show you. I didn't actually look at the page number. I'll show you where we're going to get that. So 87. All right. Scroll all the way down. Boom. So, pretty simple. Fighters get bonus feats, because D&D Beyond loves fighters in the early levels, and they say, fuck you at the end. Basically, this talks about item creation feats on which you can get. There are for certain battlecasters that are able to, as well as certain classes are able to. Talking about how to craft items. You do have a craft stat, so you may have an innate natural ability. Like in some cases, depending on the type of dwarf you are, not in our case, you may gain a bonus to crafting stoneworks or brewing crafts. So you could add that in here. So this talks about the item cost, how it works, what you can expect for potions, wands, stuff like that, and then the extra costs. There's also meta magic feats, and it talks about all of that, so that way you can kind of go through this as a player if you want to be a meta magic caster. This is something that has very specific rules, which I really recommend kind of reading through overall. I'm not going to go into it too much because we're not trying to centralize on one class specifically. We're just trying to give you an overarching view. So we have all of our feats. How do you know how many feats you're going to get? Well, that's the real question here. So we're going to go up here into acquiring feats. So we see that we get our first feat comes in, let's see, at first level, that feat is given a +4 bonus to initiative. So we get 1 feat at first level. And if I'm correct, there's usually a table for this. Unlike skills, feats are not brought. I'm just seeing if there's a mention of it. Okay. At third level, so each character gets 1 feat upon creation, and at third level, and then every 3 levels. That's what I was looking for. There we go. So this is something to kind of keep in mind. So you get 1 feat unless you're a fighter, which you get an extra bonus feat because, they need the help. Because they've got to keep the magic casters alive. And then you just go down here and you pick a feat. Some feats do have requirements. As you can see, there are prerequisites. But what's really nice is there's a lot more options with the feats. This is just the player's handbook. This is not the only one we will run.
So many.
Yes, and here's your metamagic feats if you have any of those available. Here's your item creation feats, and it tells you how many levels you're going to need. So you could full on become a spellcasting or a potion brewer and make your own potions. And there's a table to roll for that, but all you need is 3 levels in spellcasting. So something to kind of keep in mind, and it doesn't just go all the way up. There's everything in here, and it talks about every item. So this is something to kind of keep in mind that is very encouraged that there are magic casting multi-classes so with your martial classes to do a lot of if you're into crafting. We won't go through all these feats, but as you can see, there's tons of them in here. These are just the base game, and there's tons of customization in here if you wish. Some that can be really useful, some that would be kind of funny, some that just are needed, and some that really don't make any sense. It kind of comes down to how far you want to go as a player. And you can completely build feats that make no sense to your class just to see what you make. That's kind of the fun part about this whole thing. My favorite my favorite one is Endurance, personally. I run this on every character. But that's up to everyone as far as what you want to choose, and you can kind of see what benefits they give. So we're not going to go in and pick all of our feats, but note for our character in this situation, we would get 1 feat we'd get to pick from, and we would just kind of scroll through here and find one that we liked, and that fit with our character build. So we're not going to go over that. I want to kind of try and keep this to the point, as I mentioned. Any questions on feats? Perfect. All right, alignments. Believe it or not, we're actually almost done. I went way past my page of 103. So, why is alignment important? Because your DM's a dick, and 3.5 does not like you. Basically, here's a listing of what is recommended and what is expected of each race. We expect orcs to be chaotic evil. That does not mean they can't be, or they cannot be lawful good. Doesn't mean they can't be a paladin. It's just not likely. Something to kind of keep in mind, that's how this works. It talks about how they verse each other for the good versus evil and laws versus chaos. Highly recommend you read this. There is a way to kind of choose. Personally, I like to roll on it and just pick random one, and then I pick my god from there. But this kind of gives you a explanation of what this means. My favorite, and by far will always be my favorite, is the Chaotic Evil Destroyer. Because one of the things I think in 5e is people misunderstand that Chaotic Evil is fucking terrible. You are a horrible human being. This is one that you need to kind of keep in mind. So alignment matters a lot more because based on your alignment will really depend what gods you can pick and how people react to you as from your race to your class to your character overall. This talks about like what deities you can pick from. This is kind of important for you want to pick something traditional to your own race if you're playing based. But if you're not, and yes, there are some mentions of classes because this is I think in the player's handbook too. Illusionist and Necromancer are a class technically in 3.5. Yes, Chaston, I can feel your question. No, you cannot play the Necromantic Hamster. While there is a class for it, I have not fully done enough research to check how it affects overall gameplay. Once I have, I'll consider
But
it.
Necrohamster monster.
God
Okay,
damn it.
I'll take it.
Here are your deities. These are just your base deities. These are mostly just racial deities. I wouldn't worry too much about. A lot of you who watch our content are pretty familiar with one specific deity that has played a big part in TBA. But there's tons in here that they talk about and go through. So I highly recommend if you have an interest. There's one, for example, that we just recently had to deal with Paylor. But otherwise, I wouldn't worry too much. Continuing on, we've got our vital statistics. Here's your bullshit that you want to fill out your character with to make it look pretty. We've already kind of done this by skipping ahead, but if you wanted to go through here, here's your vital statistics, talk about the human sizes, what you can expect based on their class. Yes, based on their class, they may look different for starting ages. So, for example, a bardic dwarf would be probably 40 years plus another 5 times 6. What's 5 times 6, Grumpy?
30.
There you go. So you can
30.
expect on average about 70 years, or at max 70 years to be a bard. So something to kind of keep in mind. Going kind of through here, you can see their aging effects. So we can see like what would be expected for middle-aged, old, and venerable. Yes, venerable is a major thing because certain races have different bonuses based on their age group. If you really want to play it, and I actually really like to do this to extreme detail, based on your age, you want to add these stat bonuses. In this case, we're fucking young. We're 60 years old. We're right out of our mom's house saying, hey, we're going to go and conquer the world with our 1 in charisma because we believe we can do it. And we learned that one song our father taught us while we were drunk before he went out for milk and never came back. Which is really saying something in Dwarven society. What was that, Chaston?
We never said following your dream right out of the house is always a good thing.
It's true. Papa left Mom when there aren't many female dwarfs. He was just that upset with what my capabilities.
What they created.
Yep. And here's your height to weight ratio. Again, we're not going to mess around too much with this, but this kind of gives you an idea of what the base starting is. D&D 3.5 is very specific, but also fully customizable, so feel free to have some fun with it. You got your looks, your personality, your background for your character, what background you're going to choose, which I don't remember, and I got to look down at the very bottom. Here are your descriptions, your personalities, your flaws, your character traits, your context, and your enemies. Basically, all you want to know about your character. So, for example, in our situation, our enemy, we're going to put Father who went out for beer and never came back. Now, as a DM, I come in here and I see that, and I'm like, you just gave me a quick cheat sheet so I don't have to go in here and read your fucking backstory that's going to be down here. I can look right here and see, oh, okay, cool, I'll make a note of that, and then I'll look through your character sheet specifically for that section. These kind of help out your DM, and I highly recommend them kind of going through all this and filling it out. Your personality would also be where you put your alignment. Your description is what your character kind of looks like. Character flaws and traits, pretty self-explanatory, and it does kind of go into a discussion of what they're kind of like overall in here. So you kind of want to keep that in mind when you're going through here, and then you want to list your contacts and friends because your DM will keep track of this stuff for you as well as want you to keep track. Nice thing on Mythweavers, boom! You can expand this, so if you are one of those types who likes to torture your DM with pages upon pages of backstory that you know he's never going to read, you can! You also have your conditions and effects to keep in mind, and your statistic block. This is just you can generate your own stat block based on what's up there. You can also just NPC gen import if you had just something you wanted to just random generate in here. Pretty simple. Alright, so now you've gone through, you've chosen out your character, you know what they look like, you know what they are, you know what their classes are. We go to our next fun part. We go to our equipment. This is what arguably makes you a character. So, we see that here, in this situation, for our random starting gold, this is our limit of how much gold we get. So, we get 4d4 times 10. So, what's 4 times 4?
16.
So, we have 160 for max limit. So, we have 160 gold we can list in our inventory, which is going to be for our currency, 160 GP. And now, because you do have your starting equipment that every class gets, now you're going to go through here and look at trade goods. Here's all the equipments, weapon items, and shit that you wouldn't get in your normal equipment that you're going to want to look through and pick out. It talks about from everything from weapon damage that your DM can implement, if you want them to everything, basically the weapon's description and how it's going to look. So this is kind of something to keep in mind. If you are, as a player, wanting to go to a shop as well, here's how you find out how much it costs. Your DM has a table. I don't think this is as detailed in 5e, but in 3.5, this gives you all of your coin costs for just the basic weapons. This is just normal, non-magical equipment, so keep that in mind. If you wanted to get magical equipment, there are other books for that. There's also a thing called Masterwork Weapons, which, as we all know, are the plus bonuses. Why is this something I bring up? Because this is in 5e. We've all heard about this in 5e. We all know about this in 5e. Well, in 3.5, this goes up to plus 9. So, keep that in mind, kids. You can make some really good weapons, and magic items have a lot higher strength than this. Sorry, plus 10 is technically the max bonus for the 10 10 in Masterwork. I think I've only ever seen a plus 9 though. I don't know if I haven't seen an item with a 10, but something to kind of keep in mind. Anyways, so kind of keeping that in mind, going through, we can see our armor. We can go all through all this if you really want to. I'm not going to make you read all of this, but there is all the equipment you're going to need to buy. We know our spending limit would be 160 GP, so anything outside of our starting equipment we get from just being our class and our race, we would have to spend that 160 GP on. Usually you want to spend it on stuff like rations and other things like that. So pretty simple. Beyond that, that's it. Now, what are we going to do otherwise here? Now, we're going to actually put our weapons in here because we do kind of want to see how the equipment works. So for a good example, we're just going to go down to our equipment. Let's go to weapons on page 112. Nope, past it. Alright, so we're on here. Let's see, what weapon does our bard have? We wrote this down somewhere. It is mentioned. Weapons and armor we're proficient with. So we're going to go with a longsword, because what's more dwarven than longswords? What'd you say?
Warhammers.
Yeah, warhammers, that's true. I could do a dwarven warhammer. You know what? We're going to do a war axe. Wait, is war axe on our list of things we can get? No, it is not. So, unfortunately...
We are a bard.
Yes, while we do have bonuses as a dwarf to weapon familiarity... we do get to treat them as martial weapons, so this is something to keep in mind, since they're not considered
Look, what's a more bardic weapon than a whip? Just saying.
A whip with an axe on the end. So,
yeah, that sounds about right.
We're going to go in here for our war axe. We know it costs 30 GP, so we'll go to our currency up here. We'll minus that out. Nothing fancy here, really. We just keep track of that naturally. And we can see that we're going to put our war axe in our weapon thing. So we're going to go up here. We're going to call it Dwarven War Axe. The total attack bonus we can see is... So it does give different sizes in our case. We're going to go with a medium-sized one. So we get 1d10 is the damage, because we get no bonus here. This would be if we had like a +1 bonus or anything like that. If on a critical, it's 3 times the damage, so that's something to keep in mind. This means that you get 3 times the dice rather than only doubling the dice, so kind of cool thing. You got 8 pounds of weight for the weapon. So we'll put that. We're going to put its size as medium because that's the one we're using. And what kind of damage it does, which in this case, as we can see, it does slashing. So we would just put slashing for S. You can write the whole thing out if you want, or you can just put S. It's up to you. Special properties are in case you have spells, and of course ammunition is just keeping track of your bow ammo. So if you have a bow, you don't have to go down to your equipment every time. You can just put down, hey, this is how many arrows I have. And you can keep subtracting them as you're firing them off. Now, if we're going to go down, we're going to pick up our armor now. We can, unfortunately, as a bard, at best, I believe, wear leather armor. Leather and shields, except for tower shields. So we are going to get a shield because we are that kind of asshole. We're going to go down to our armor section here. We're going to keep scrolling. And we're going to look at our light armor. And we're going to go, because we have the money, we're going to get a chain shirt. You know, why not, guys? This is what we're doing. So we're going to lose 100 gold. We're down with 30 GP. We're a broke bard, but we don't care. So we're doing our chain
That amazing
shirt.
charisma, you'll be able to earn it back.
Exactly. I have faith. My father didn't, but that's okay. We put that light. What's the AC bonus in here? We can go in here. We can see it's a +4 AC bonus. So 4. Are there any check penalties in here? Looks like we have a -2 check penalty, which means that's for stealth specifically, so kind of keep that in mind. What's the max dex we can get? We get a +4 bonus. Doesn't have any special properties, so we don't have to worry about that. How much does it weigh? We know it weighs 25 pounds. Spell fail. What is this, you ask? So if you're playing a wizard, or in this case, a bard with a really bad casting capability, you have to roll on a D100 every time you cast a spell that has a chance of spell fail, with a 20% chance of failing. So,
Dang.
yeah, kind of keep that in mind. That heavy armor does make wizards and bards and such worse. Now, in our case, we get 20 feet because we already had 20 feet. We don't get the full 30 feet movement because we are a dwarf, so that doesn't matter. So now you see we also, we get a +4 to our AC, so we have a 15 that's been applied. For our size, we get no bonuses, and we have no natural armor bonuses. If we want a shield on top of this, we can go down here to shield. We'll go with a buckler shield because we're a dwarf bard, and we have no money left, mostly. So we go into our buckler for our protective item. We're going to put shield. What's the AC bonus this shield is going to give us? It gives us an extra +1. So we just put 1 in there. Are there any check penalties to having a buckler shield? Nope. Oh, yep, there's a -1 here. So we do -1. We don't have a max dex modifier. We put in our weight, which is 5 pounds, and we have a 5% spell failure chance here.
What does that add with the other spell failure?
Yep, so it's 25% chance every time we cast a spell that there'll be a spell fail. And also on concentration, you have a 25% chance of losing concentration. So
If you failed to cast a spell, does that like the cantrip you can cast 2 a day? If you fail, does that take up one of them? Oh, that sucks.
Mm-hmm. And as you can note, we have no change in speed here, so that's fine. We're all good with that. And now you can see our armor has increased to 16. Our movement speed is already set up to 20. Our armor type is light, because as we mentioned down here, it's already set. So that's already set up. In our initiative, we have no extra bonuses, so we only have our dex. This is to touch. This is basically... I don't remember off the top of my head what touch is. So you might have to look it up. Flat-footed, this would be basically your character if he is specifically mentioned as a flat-foot. So something to kind of keep in mind with that. Yes, there are players who can customize to that level.
Is that movement speed?
Huh?
Is that movement speed?
Yes, 15. Yep. So something to kind of keep in mind. Besides that, we're pretty much done. You would have your other possessions down here for all of your equipment listed down. You can have all your weight. So let's say we know we get like a backpack, for example, as one of our items. And if it weighed, let's say, I don't know, my backpack always weighs like 5 pounds. And then you can put where it's at. for your location, so kind of keep track of it. And now we can see in total right now we're carrying 43 pounds of weight. And if we go up here, we have about roughly 115 for over the head for the max load of 115 pounds of weight. So pretty simple. And you just add your equipment, all of your equipment going down, going through everything, and then boom, you're done. Same thing goes in here for spells. It tells you how long it will take to cast this spell. So if your casting is an action, you just put like one action, something to kind of keep in mind, and you just list all your spells in here that you have available. In our case, I think spells are on page 181 for a spellcaster. Yep, here it is. So we can go in here and look at all of our cantrips or our first level spells that we have available, and boom, you've got it done. So here's the cantrips available to a bard that you can pick from, and then you just basically go in here and say summon instrument, for example. I'm going to take that, copy and paste it, boom. Spell and power name. Now, I always keep the description. Why? Because as I've learned, I don't like going through my book again, so just kind of keeping that there lets me kind of highlight over it and check it. It's a little less organized than D&D Beyond, I will say, where they have the kind of advantage of just being able to like click right here and then it pulls up the spell on the side. But you know, overall makes it pretty decent to go through there and just do it like that. You can also come down in here and in your private notes list out all your spell capabilities. It kind of depends on the player. So, and that's pretty much character sheet development in general. That's how you make a character going forward. Pretty simple overall. As far as it goes, I don't believe there's any mention of the action to economy in this specifically, but the assumption would be one action. Oh, yeah, here, action points. So you do get so many action points based on your thing. So based on your class. In this case, we only have one action point because we only get one action as a bard. We get our movement in that. So in our case, technically in my table, you would get two actions every at the level 1 because you have your movement as well as yeah. What's up?
And there are certain classes that like give you more action points, like a certain
Yes.
fighter probably
Well,
gets.
as you level up, yeah, like fighters get extra actions as they level up. They get two actions instead of just one. Same with barbarians and the other martial classes, I believe.
Like full actions, like they can do anything with those actions, or is it still like only melee, like attacks
Let
for
me
them
look.
specifically?
Let's go find here. We're gonna just boop. Let me pull up, for example, a fighter, page 37. Okay. So, with fighter, for example, I'm just seeing if we get it. Okay, so you get your base attack bonus, bonus feats, just seeing if it mentions it, because there is talk typically. Class feature, bonus features, game information, because usually there's mention of the action point in here specifically, but am I blind, or is it, maybe it's at the beginning of class table. Let me see, because that is a good question. Here, let's go back up to the top and see if there's a specific section on actions to show you the breakdown of that. So, actions in combat, yeah, 138. So it should be if it's anywhere down there. Okay. So, actions in combat. So it talks about the standard actions, your movement actions, the full round actions, free actions that you can get, not an action. So free action is something that consumes a very small amount of time, something that, like saying something to someone as you're stabbing them would be a good example. As far as a table to show the actions that come together. This also gives a full breakdown of what you can do as part of like whether it'll give you an attack of opportunity or not, and like whether it's considered an action or not to do something. For example, it is not, you will not get a attack of opportunity if you delay your your action. Also, if you only move a 5-foot step. Let me see. But I don't know if they actually talk about the table of what classes get what actions as they level up. I'm just seeing if I can find it through here. I think that's just movement speed. Combat modifiers. It would be similar to what 5e has. I know that. I'm just trying to see if I can find it. And as you can kind of see, this gives you information on everything from throwing weapons to grapple checks, how to deal with that, and such from a DM's perspective as well. I'm just seeing if there's any mention. No, that's carrying capacity then. I might have to get back to you on that question here, because I don't know if there's a table that should show that. Because, yeah, fighter specifically will have more actions early on, but I don't know if it talks about specifically each DM determines combatants who have not yet rolled. When everyone has had a turn, the highest initiative acts. Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just seeing if they have anything specifically on actions. Okay, turn, you take a standard action and move action, 2 actions or 1 more full round action. You may also perform. No, it doesn't say. Yeah, I think I'll have to get back to you to answer that question for the time being. Certain classes do have more actions. I just can't remember what the level breakdown is. Chance, it's not. That's attack bonuses. Just seeing if it's mentioned. Will dependent actions. Feats, ability increases. No. Base attack bonus on attack roleplay. No, yeah, I'll get back to you on that. Apologies. Yeah. All right. Any other questions as far as it goes?
I don't think I have any. I don't think Cheston's here right now.
Oh, Cheston left. All right.
Oh, he's muted, so I don't know.
So that's pretty much roughly it without prestige classes. As I mentioned, prestige classes are mostly just going in and double checking your setup. I won't really go into it too much, but the epic level handbook is where you're going to want to look. I'm just going to kind of... There are also, I should mention... other like complete adventures. These are going to be other classes as well as they're going to have their own prestige classes. But just to give you a quick sample, just so I can keep this kind of all in one video, you can see that once you're level 20, you have other feats available and stuff like that. Here are just a couple of examples of a prestige class. I'll just see if I can find one specifically that I'm very familiar with, and I'm not seeing one, so we're just going to use the next one here. Alright, so we see the Cosmic Descryer here. Basically, the requirements to become this is you have to have a skill of knowledge in the planes up to 24 ranks. That means 24 ranks in a knowledge thing of that specifically. So if it's not a class 1, you will have to take a long time to invest. You also need the spell focus for conjuration, and you need an epic feat of energy resistance taken. So you have to fulfill that. You also have to know the spell and have the ability to cast Gate and any planar ally or planar binding, and have traveled to any of the other planes of existence. So these are the requirements just to become this specific class, and then you gain these bonuses. At any level, as long as you have fulfilled all of the requirements, you can gain this class. So that's something to kind of keep in mind, and you can start putting levels into it. However, in this case, I have a feeling energy resistance is going to require something specific to get. So, yeah, and it basically just takes over as another class. You can continue to level in your main class so long as you're capable, which means as long as your alignment still allows you to. And you can just basically start putting levels into this as well. D&D, I believe, in this with the Epic Level Handbook, and I just want to double check. I don't know what the max level they have set for this. Well, yeah, here. What is the level thing? Now your characters get to join in. I'm just seeing if it actually specifically states how high. It does not seem to. Okay, so Are provided from the 21st to the 30th level. Okay, so that's basically, this is up till 30th level. Technically, you can continue to go beyond this if you wanted. So for a good example, right now, if I did, and did, let's say, 500 change. Now, the XP, you'd have to go in here and adjust. You'd have to go to the table and find it specifically what the XP's at, but you can, or have your DM will let you know what it would be at because he would have it in his Dungeon Master guidebook. So, something to kind of keep in mind. All right. That is everything you need to know besides, like, collecting an image, which all you need to put is a URL for where the image is located. Is there any last questions from you, Grumpy? Anything you can think of that would be something that someone else might want to know? Any dumb question you can think of?
Not right now.
Okay. So we appreciate you guys watching this hour-and-a-half video. I apologize for the length, but this should cover basically everything from the basics of 101 D&D. Some of the stuff you will need to do your own research on outside of what I've done, as I've mentioned. But otherwise, I hope you have enjoyed the video. We hope you take this seriously, and otherwise, we will see you guys whenever the next video is.